Hello, Central Mafia, and hello, Aaron. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I am excited for the here in the next couple of weeks because we're gonna see each other.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I was supposed to be there in Chicago. Had to make a last minute audible, but definitely look forward to seeing everyone in Anaheim.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally get it, buddy. Totally get it. I feel like haven't been home in a few weeks, so I don't know how all those road warriors out there do it, but yeah, I was like in Pittsburgh for a weekend, and then we had drove over. Went back to Indiana, drove over to Chicago. Was over there for user group last week. Drove back, and now just so I can get my mindset ready for California, I decided to come to Alabama. Also make any sense. Anyway, I'm vacationing with a family over here in Gulf Shores. I'm wearing a sweatshirt because it looks sunny, but it's kind of it's chilly
Still
out here.
winter.
Yeah, it's still like cold breeze. So I think that's what you get, right? Where you go to, I don't know what the weather's going to be over in Anaheim. I know it's can fluctuate too. So I'm ready and I'm
It will
excited.
be. It will not be chilly.
It will not be chill. Okay,
It will not be chilly.
good to
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I'll check my Google weather before we go there. But hey, enough about my travels and the weather. Uh,
I get it. I live out of a suitcase myself, so
I know
I'm used to
you're
it.
like down south.
I'm in Georgia right now. I'm
Okay.
in Northeast Georgia mountains, Blue Ridge, and a very pleasant community. Every time I come here and visit, everyone has an accent, and I feel, even though I'm from the South, from Florida, I feel like such an alien, such a foreigner here, and I'm like, man, I gotta work on my accent so it doesn't sound contrived, but so I can fit in. you know,
Well, I always have an accent, so I never fit in. But it's a good conversation starter.
yeah.
So, all right, so this is a very special live stream because again, it is Tuesday. It is 1 Eastern, two Eastern, 1 Central here. Um, so very special because we are bringing all of our sponsors right before our Anaheim meetup. So we're super excited to extend Central Mafia. Working with Aftershock, Aaron, which you have been part of it for the last how many
like
years were you
like
facilitating Aftershock?
7 or 8 years
Yeah.
as a facilitator. Yeah, yeah. I've been going for since longer than that.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
almost 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here with Central Mafia. It was, yeah, almost 10 years before I became a facilitator. So it's been like 15 years now.
Mhm.
So super excited to bring the community back together to continue the goal of the Central Mafia, which is bringing partners together through education. So that's what's one of the things that we're doing here. So with me today is Aaron. Aaron, for those of you who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been involved with a few different IT companies, mostly in aftershock. I was with Rain Technology Solutions with my friend Patrick Rain, who founded that in Monterey, California. And then once I started to become a nomad, um, I left and founded Pumpkin Business Services. And was, but early on, what brought me to user group was we got ConnectWise in like 2013 or 14, and back when the account managers would talk to you, they were like hey, you should go to this thing, and so that's what got me into joining that, and eventually getting into the IT Nation community, and just really loved how much it exposed us to great ideas, opportunities, just the community itself, which is, I think, a force multiplier for any MSP and really any service business, to get out, because Monterey is a little bit of a bubble. It's a little town on the coast of California, and so we don't have that exposure to like a larger, urban area. So that's really what I think it helped us take big steps to growing and maturing as a company.
Yep. Yeah. I get you, but I was, yeah, super excited when I joined. I was like, what am I going to run into when we started going to these user groups
Yeah.
as our consultant.
And even though
Uh,
you might be around like quote unquote competitors and stuff like that, I think when you're in a community of your peers, people who go through the same things that you go through, deal with the same issues, it's a great thing. It's the reason why peer groups,
yeah.
which whoever you go through, you always get something I think great out of peer groups as well. And it's something where it's like when you're in your own world of doing IT services, and all your clients obviously are hiring you because they don't understand, they can't, they don't barely know how to turn a computer on, and then you're around peers who are dealing with like very like esoteric issues in their companies like you are. You get that excitement of like, oh my gosh, I can talk to hundreds of other people who have perspectives or experience or whatever. And yeah, it's a huge, it's when you don't have that and then you have that, it's a massive like shot in the arm for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's another way to, continue to expand your network and your connections, because it's always good to reach out and see who else is out there that have the same challenges. So as you heard, I mean, the Central Mafia, Aftershock, this whole community, it's really to bring partners together. It is completely partner led. So all the things that we do are for the partners and by the MSP partners. So we want to make sure that everybody who attends these meetups or is with us virtually always engage, ask those questions and always be active in our community. We're always listening to make those suggestions so we can continue to improve and grow. And like I said earlier, just expand your network and make all those different connections. I forgot about Keith. Keith is not with us today, but he will see you.
He's alive. He's alive.
Yes, yes.
He's just not on this. He's just not on
Yeah,
this
looks like
Zoom
he's
call
not
or
with
on
us
this
today.
stream.
Yeah, he will be there. He will be there in Anaheim. He joined us over in Chicago. Brought his cigars, about his expertise. He actually had a session as well. So ways you can find out to stay up to date with the Central Mafia activities. One of them is through our Slack channel. So if you just join the Slack, that's where we're going to post everything that's happening. It's also a great way to ask questions to the community. The other way is LinkedIn, and we're very active on LinkedIn. That's how you probably find out about this live stream. But we are looking forward to have you, and that's the best way to know what is happening. And this live stream and all of our live streams are uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you hear something today that you might find interesting, you want to share with somebody else, or want to do a recap, or just go by any of our live streams, just go in here. You can share that with your peers. All the way to stay informed. Oh my goodness, I forgot to. This is live. This is the last live stream. All right. All the way to stay informed is through our newsletter, which we send out on a monthly basis. We have all the partner updates and all the community updates, and also I forgot to update the slide because the live stream date is not right, but we do our live streams on the second and third Thursdays of the month. Follow on LinkedIn to find out when the next one is. That's the best thing I can do to cover up my mistake over here from not updating this slide. So we cannot do this. We cannot have a platform to reach out to you, communicate, put all these events together, and keep the community alive without the support of our sponsors. So thank you, Infima and Acronis. Today we have Pivotal Crew. We have Kathy from Pivotal Crew. Also Mobila, and how we reach out to everybody in our newsletter platform is through the folks over at from Exemplify. So we do appreciate their support and believing on all the things that we want to do for this community. All right, a couple more here. We were talking about this meetup. It's first time Central Mafia is coming over to California. So we're very excited. We have these events over in Chicago for the last couple of years, and when we were talking about expanding, Aaron, you raised your hand and said, "Let's do this."
What's wrong with me?
Buckle up, my friend. So April 16th, we'll be at the Anaheim Marriott Suites in Anaheim, California. To register is very simple. California.centralmafiaug.com. Just go in and register. The room block is still open. So if you need to book your hotel, the room block is still open. I think it's open until this Friday. So make sure you take advantage of that for that special rate. We do have a pre-day networking the day before, which is going to hang out at the same hotel, try to figure out the logistics of what we're going to do for fun, but we will be at the hotel. So April 15th in the afternoon, evening, we'll be over there. So if you are traveling, you're a couple hours away, come over, hang out with us, and then the next day on April 16th, we will have a very nice day of, again, education and networking. And we'll see Aaron.
Yeah, and we'll celebrate having tax season over and having all our taxes done. Right?
Yes. Yes. Cheers to tax season. All right. And speaking of the things that we'll see over in Anaheim, we will have Kathy over there with us, and she will be talking about mergers and acquisitions, M&As, which is the first time we're doing an M&A talk on a live stream. Where we'll talk about we're talking a lot of security, AI, QBRs, sales. It's the first time we're talking about M&A, and this one particularly is what happens after the acquisition. So with us again, we have Kathy. Kathy is a software process and executive consultant with over 30 years in IT services. She specializes in the ConnectWise PSA process and optimization and automation, facilitating data-driven decision making. So for earlier we we're talking like what is the better use, like how do we learn to better use our tools, specifically we're talking like ConnectWise PSA. Kathy brings a lot of experience in there. So she helps, it's focused on helping business leaders and their team implement systems and process to reduce complexity, better practices, leading us to trust and make decisions in complex and evolving business environments. So I did not do it justice for all the experience that Kathy brings. And how cool she can explain things that are very complex and make it super simple for everybody. So let's go ahead and bring Kathy on. There she is. Hi, Kathy. I think you're muted.
I am muted. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
You don't have to keep going on and on about the number of years of experience that I have. That's cool right there.
You know what? I used at one point, I think like around like 20. So I think it's like, oh yeah, I got a lot of experience. And after that, it's like, I'm old.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about it's not going to grow anymore. I'm just going to say over 30. That's it.
Yes,
that's all I'm saying.
Yes,
that's
exactly. That's what we should reach the cap.
Well, I'm really glad to join you guys today.
Yes. And this is we're talking backstage earlier, and this is the prequel, right? To what we're gonna see in California, because Aaron was saying like we can have like a 5-part series when we're talking about M&As. So
sure. Of course.
So let's I think we're gonna just get the prequel until people have an idea of what to listen and and what are the things that we're going to cover, and then come over and you can learn all the details, and then that way they can ask you all the questions. Because
absolutely,
I told Aaron, I was like, this is not my forte. Let's talk about, if you want to talk to me about like reporting and some data analytics and automation, I raise my hand. M&As, I'm here to learn. But Aaron, he's does have a bit of experience on that one. So, but you are the expert. So let's go ahead and get started. So
Great.
I think it is like what happens after the acquisition. So I'm sure like
Yeah.
there's a lot of fun stuff that happens before, right? Like in the whole
Profit.
dance and closing the deal.
Profit.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about
There's
the
a
money,
goal.
right?
Yeah, there is a goal.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then we sign the dotted line, and reality strikes.
Yeah. What happens now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
So let's talk about that. Let's go
Sure.
through that journey.
Great. So after the acquisition, all the things that you need to, so there's a reason why you did the acquisition, right? You wanted to expand your geography into a new geography. You wanted to acquire a company that had different skills than you had, or it's the same type of business and it's just really trying to get that growth in the MSP space, or you wanted to get a new set of tools that you don't have today in terms of offerings that you can offer to in your industry. So there's a reason why you did this, and it's clear to you, and it's clear to the team that helped you negotiate and make that deal happen. And hopefully everyone's happy with what they got or what they bought it for. But once you've got the money out of the way, now we got to figure out, what do we do with this? What do we do with these two companies that have two groups of people that have their own processes and their own culture, and how do we bring those two things together in the correct way for whatever the vision was of your particular or this particular acquisition? And so that's really what I focus on in this particular topic area, is kind of, what do we do now? What do I do? How do I deal with the anxiety that comes from the unknown, that folks that weren't associated with the actual acquisition now, okay, tell me what you need me to do. What does this mean to my job, and how do we put all these things together? And that's really what this is focused on.
Okay. Do you see? Because you talk about I know that you bring the expertise when it comes to like the systems integration and data and all that, and I'm sure that is key, and then can create a lot of anxiety, not only for the owners that is like, okay, I have this new, how I'm going to make them work, but for the people that are using it. When you're helping clients through this, what's your involvement? Like, how does it look from the people perspective? That's the first thing I'm trying to, because you just mentioned it, just like trigger something. That's like, what happens like, from the people perspective, like how do you help them navigate through that?
Sure. So and at Pivotal, we work with partners who are starting out on their first potential acquisition and just starting to evaluate things. And we have partners who are, their 15th acquisition that we've helped them with in terms of making those migrations and processes work together. And so when you think about the maturity level of those two types of companies, right? Somebody who's just starting out, we're this whole process is a little bit fly by the seat of our pants. We need to get as much information from others who have done this before to provide me with a structure that I can apply to what I'm doing. But I'm going to learn stuff as I go, right? If I'm that company that's just starting out on the first one, I'm going to learn things, and I'm going to need to make a note of those things so that the next time I know what to do differently. And then of course the companies that have done it, this is, we can go through an acquisition and the resulting merge of information and processes and people, in a fairly quick period of time, because we know what we're going to. It's the same thing, and we're not your first acquisition. You might be gaining some processes from the company you're bringing over. On your 15th, you likely have a larger company that has defined processes, and so coming in, it's really about, how do I teach and move my processes over to this newly acquired team, and how do we work together cohesively without upsetting this larger company that has much different processes. So it can vary, depending on the needs of the partner. I have some partners that come and say, hey, I'm thinking of acquiring this company, sign an NDA and tell me what you think of their books, right? So that's not typically what I get involved in. But some of my partners, we've worked together for a long time. So they come and ask those questions. But generally speaking, we're coming in once the acquisition is inked and it's time to figure out what's the best approach to pulling things together in the way that it aligns with the vision of why this acquisition occurred. Yeah, but that can definitely vary.
So this, I hear you talking about companies that are working on this process like of acquisition, right? So on the buy-in, I know I talked to a lot of MSPs. Actually, I think it was at this last one of the previous meetup. I was talking to a partner that says like, hey, I'm the sole owner of this company. I've been running it for X amount of years.
Yep.
I'm ready to step out. And he's asking me like, what should I do?
Right.
I don't know. So on somebody would say in that, from that perspective, like I want to be acquired. I want out.
Right.
What are like the steps or what should be?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, obviously 5 years before you're looking to get acquired, joining a peer group is a great way to, and there's several different ones in the industry. I have a lot of partners that are in Evolve. I've got some partners that are in some other groups as well. Joining a peer group really helps you focus on the things that are going to provide the most value for your exit strategy. So put a little mark on that. That's kind of an important thing that a lot of partners can gain a lot of value from on that path towards getting out of their business. Strictly speaking, looking at the business, and if you're a one-man shop, that's a little more difficult. And I think then you're looking at, I need to bring somebody in now to introduce them to all my partners. Because if you're a one-man shop, that is a relationship business. Your customers come to you because they know you and they like you and they have that relationship with you. In order for you, that's the hardest part to transition over to a new person. So, and we have a partner that works with us now who did that themselves to get into the business they're in. They acquired half of it. When that original owner was ready, looking at 3 years out, I want to get out of this in 3 years. In that case, it was a business that had no MSP at all. They were just a VAR, essentially. They were a reseller. And so for that 3 years, it was basically the VAR funding the creation of this MSP. And then the value that original owner took at the end of that process was huge compared to what he was looking at when he was looking just to sell a product-based sales business. So I think definitely, for one man, I think it's a one-person shop. You really need to understand the value of the relationship, and that's part of what your clients really love about your services. So transitioning that over to another person, I think, is a longer-term process, in my opinion. So having a person that that is interested in taking this over, having them come in a period of time before you're looking to exit and getting them into all of these accounts is going to be critically important. For smaller companies, I think one of the big things is going to be getting your systems ready. Right? If you're flying by the seat of your pants and how you use whatever PSA you're using, ConnectWise I can talk to, but if you're using another PSA, that's fine too. If you're flying by the seat of your pants and you're getting stuff done because we're a small company and I can put any hat on and get things where it needs to go, so I get an invoice out to the customer and they're happy enough, and if that's the way you're operating right now, I would recommend spending some effort on making your systems and your current methodologies for how you operate more consistent and repeatable, because that's going to be an easier transition over to somebody else when they acquire you. But the most important part probably is making sure that your books are separated in the right way to show the value of your one-time sales and your recurring sales, which is, of course, where the biggest multipliers are going to be. So spending, if you're a lot of partners that I work with, their chart of accounts is product sales and service sales, and that's it. We need a lot more detail from that. We need to align your costs and your to the correct revenue sections of your P&L. So that is definitely something to spend time on, to make sure that your P&L tells the story that you want to tell, because people acquiring other companies aren't acquiring them based on how you feel about how well your company has done. They need to see the numbers, right? So those are kind of the key areas that I would suggest. Yeah.
Right on. And to kind of go back to your original topic of like, after that, what can people look forward to as far as like, I mean, I'm just trying to ask this a little bit more narrowly because it can vary so widely,
Of
whether
course.
if you're the buyer
Yeah.
or the seller, because
Right.
a lot of sellers expect to stick around for a little while, to help with the
Sure.
transition.
Sure.
Buyers can be strategic buyers, they can be investors, they can be, or in the rare case, you might have a merger. And
Mm-hmm.
my previous company tried to do a merger, and I think they found they eventually ended it because it was just too challenging, cultures and processes and systems. And
Sure.
I'm sure while they're more unusual, they're also probably more difficult to pull off because of a situation where maybe it's not even 50-50, but you're taking two companies and you're basically, everyone is staying, but you're creating this new entity with them working together, which presents a lot of, after the transition or after the signing or whatever, things get
For
probably
sure.
very, very hard to execute, with two expectations,
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I think, you bring up a good point. There's several different types of, there's a ton of different types of M&A options out there. But yes, if you're taking two companies and you're merging them together and both the owners are going to continue to work in the business, and sure, there may be some plan that somebody or everybody's selling in some future point, but right now everybody's working together. Well, everyone working in their own companies is proud of what they've built. They're proud of their processes. The processes work for them. They know how to do it. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to look at a document and say, what am I supposed to do at this stage? Right. So everybody is going to feel, proud and aligned to their own way of doing things. And I think it's important to step back and this is something that we talk about in this presentation, but it's important regardless of what the methodology is that you're looking. If this is, you acquired another company and they're being brought in to your company eventually after that buyout is finished and all that stuff, or if you're merging with another company, you got to sit down first and look at both companies and say, what applications, what tools, and what key processes do we have in place to do the things that we're doing? And really step back from your own personal or your company's personal preferences around which ones work and which ones don't, and really look at them with kind of a an objective lens and say what will work really well for these companies we're bringing together. What do we see in the future when we bring these companies together, and what applications are going to best support that? And I think it helps at that point to bring somebody in who can look at it from that completely objective standpoint that doesn't come from one of these companies. And so that's sometimes the part that my team plays, is being that person who comes in and can say, neither of these things win over the other, but here's the best way that you guys as a larger company should look at these processes and start operating in the most efficient way possible going forward. So sometimes that expert help from outside the company can be, the two companies can be helpful. But that is important, like document, what are we using for HR processes? Like we're talking about the PSA, that's an easy one because we got to figure out how to get an invoice out, right? So if I've got two different PSA systems that have all of my project work and all of my time being entered into them, that's a big ticket item I got to figure out, so I can figure out how to get my invoices going to the customers and into my accounting package in whatever formatting that is. But what about all the other systems? How's each company doing human resources? What kind of contracts does each company have? Which obviously you should know before you sign on the dotted line. Please know that before you sign on the dotted line, both employee contracts and the customer contracts. But what are the systems that are being used by each of those companies for the various things? What's the accounting package? Does the P&L look anywhere similar to each other. That's a big one that we can run into roadblocks on when doing the integration together. What are their RMM tools? What are the sales tools that they use? So, easiest case scenario is one of the companies does everything manually and the other company has all these awesome processes. Well, great. Let's automate. Let's just take those great processes that we're acquiring with this company or getting from being acquired. But more than likely, both the companies have processes that work for them, and some of them are automated, some of them might not be, but there's systems that they're used to. And so that is the first step, is really one of the first steps when it comes to the systems is to identify what are they, how well is it working for you, what are the costs associated with it, right? Because cost can be an impact on whether one lives or the other does. So all of those things are important to get down on paper first, digital paper, of course, and really understand what are the tools that these two companies are using, so you know what you're dealing with. That's really the most important thing, is what are we dealing with when it comes to the systems, for sure. Yeah.
So far I heard process.
Process.
Make sure that you have from either side, right? Make sure that your process, you understand that, because even if you are looking to be acquired, or in the you're being acquired or getting ready to, make sure that you have that well documented. If that's your goal, makes you more appealing. Beside and have your books ready. And then at that point you can compare. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and see which one is the one that was going to make us more profitable, more efficient, better for our employees, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of changes that will happen there. And I also heard you, when you started talking about apps, it made me think about Stack. Like, one company might have certain products within their Stack, not just to run their business, but what they're offering their clients. So there's another
absolutely
another project.
For sure. And what's been big in this industry for years has been, as an MSP, we filter down to the thing we're going to be good at, right? I'm going to always implement Sophos firewalls or whatever the right. But the other company had their thing, right? And their product that they always went out and installed. And so how do you take those, the stack of the security products and the backup products and the alerting and monitoring products? How do you take those two things? Those are key operational tools, and that lead into your processes that are super important. You can't keep all of them forever, right? If we're talking an MSP acquisition, acquiring another MSP, at some point you need to have an alerting system, and you need to have, the multiple alerting systems are really going to be about things that are missing from the main one. Your security tools, you probably want to have all the same ones so that you can support those in the most consistent way possible. So at some point you got to sit down and document what all those things are and understand what is the transition process from one partner to move to the other tool, and how do you transition those clients over and stuff of that nature, for sure.
Now, to that, I think obviously as far as long term, the having the alignment of all those systems as a buyer, and you're looking at, especially if you're doing multiple acquisitions, right? You might be dealing with really a kaleidoscope of different stacks. However, I've heard a lot when you talk to searchers and stuff, that there's something called the J curve, right? Where you have all of you now have this this single merged company, or this company that has acquired one or more other companies, but there is a time where there's sort of like a big dip in either profit or just overall, or at least net profit, or even net, or even gross margin, and that has to do with just the inevitable slagging everything together and kind of dealing with some of that uncollected revenue is going to the previous seller, like that's part of the agreement sometimes,
of course.
So And sometimes buyers don't realize that, and they're like, "Wait, I'm not making any money from this new company for 6 months." So how do you reconcile that with, because if you change everything too fast, you might end up with really hitting a lot of red, and that can freak out a lot of buyers.
Sure.
So I guess what have you seen work with buyers on dealing and preparing for that?
I think, forewarned is forearmed. So I think understanding that will happen, because there is a period of time, right? Every deal that I've ever encountered, where I know the terms of that deal, there's a period of time where there's a buyout over time, or there's if the customers stay for this amount of time, you get this multiplier, whatever. So there's some deal that has to be executed at some point. So there is this long-term, sort of more long-term after the signature, so to speak, where there is a period of time where there's still some responsibility to the previous ownership, assuming they're not staying in the business long-term. But so I think understanding that is important, understanding and expecting that this is not turn around the next day after you acquire the company and boom, you're making piles more money. There is I think it's important to be realistic in accepting that there is a period of time that you need to transition, right? And so that transition is super important. The most important part of what you're buying when you buy another MSP, right? Another MSP, another company that does what you do. It's not the technical skill necessarily, unless there's a particular area that this other MSP that you acquired has a skill in that you don't. But most of the time, you've got people who are doing password resets. You've got people who are doing more advanced things. You've got people who are coming in and doing project work. You may have your skills organized in a different way than that. But the most important thing you're buying is the people that you're acquiring as customers and the people that you're acquiring as employees. And I think the anxiety associated for those folks in terms of this company that I either get my services from or that I work for is being acquired, all of a sudden, there's anxiety associated with that. So I think addressing those fears is one of the key things that probably gets missed quite a bit, are one of the key things to accept as the owner that you're going to have this. There's going to be people who don't understand your vision, who don't know what this means to them. What do you need me to do tomorrow? What does my job look like in 6 months? All of those kinds of things. You need to be honest with people about what's going to happen and what that looks like. And I think that anxiety is what causes people to focus on that stuff and the butting heads over my process is better, my tool is better, versus being more, let's work as a team to figure out the best way forward as a whole group. And I think not dealing with that anxiety from either customers or employees is one of the key things that can trip up any type of migration or any type of integration of two companies.
Totally.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've run into this before.
Once or twice this week, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So without going into, because all the juicy details about this is all the information that
no names, protect the guilty. Yeah.
With no names, can you share something like I had somebody when I walked in and oh my God, clients were about to leave, being extreme, right?
Sure. Sure.
And have you run into that situation and what's been your advice and what's been what was the process like? Okay, this is how we should approach this if you're reached that stage. Right. We can avoid with good preparation, right? Yeah. But I'm sure you've not been. You've been probably jumping in when everything was already been decided and announced.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of times. So Pivotal Crew has partners that we've worked with for many years that that do acquisitions. We have some that every quarter they're trying to acquire this many companies and stuff. So it is their growth strategy. We have other companies that are smaller size and looking at doing acquisitions, but it's more of a long-term play. So we have a wide variety of companies that come to us, and a lot of them have worked with us for a long time. But on the flip side, there's a lot of partners that come to us because they've already acquired something and they did not have a good experience of trying to merge it, and now we need to figure out how do we undo this. I have some partners who should probably take that approach to their system, particularly about the systems where they have acquired several companies and merged those in as they operate today, which is probably one of the, when it comes to, if we're talking strictly about PSA, and your migration plan or your integration plan for a company that you've acquired, bringing them in as they operate today. I'm not talking about with their invoice, with their logo on it, and their, customers are still contracted with them and all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about locations. I'm talking about the processes people use to do things like invoicing, or how they enter time, or how they deal with projects, or how they create their agreements. Having those things be completely different with two different companies and trying to operate in the same system. I do have a partner that has that, and they do not have an appetite to try to fix that problem. And I feel like at some point it's going to get to a breaking point. They've had 4 or 5 acquisitions, same idea, bring them in. Product catalog's massive, processes are all different. Some parts of the business will come and ask questions about invoicing. Others, they just, I got it out, so we'll do. So the focus on making a cohesive result of these companies, to me, that's a big no-no, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't make those decisions for every company, or for any company except my own. But those things where you're basically saying, yeah, you can come in and do your own processes, we're just going to move you into PSA. That is a big roadblock, in my opinion. That's a big red flag. So yeah, I have a lot of partners who, and then I have some partners who learned the hard way in trying to do some integrations themselves. Did lose some clients and some good employees, and realized that, taking a more defined and consistent approach to how they do it was going to position everyone in a better place after the acquisition was migrated in. And so those companies typically have very well-defined processes. We're going to start at this time. Here's what we're doing. Here's all the lessons learned, massive list of lessons learned that we've learned from all these different acquisitions we've done, and all the processes we went through to incorporate them into our systems and our company. And that's really, I think, what I would say is a very important consideration is, if you're doing an acquisition, you need a spreadsheet or OneNote or whatever you use to take notes, just random thought process notes. Just keep it going, a random, like a total, stream of consciousness list. What did I learn? What went wrong? What failed that I need to consider next time, so I can ask that question, or I can think about that process in the future. Because even all the acquisitions that I've been part of with so many different companies, there's new stuff that we come across. There's new things that we have not experienced yet, and we learn from those, and then we help, all our partners learn from those issues and those challenges that we help them through. So I think, that's probably the biggest thing that I encounter, is the thought that this is going to be easy. I think is probably the biggest issue. Yeah, somebody who is doing their first acquisition thinking, oh, well, they use ConnectWise too, so we'll just bring them in, and yeah, should be good. Everybody implements ConnectWise in a slightly different way, so it's really not quite that simple, and that's one of the red flags as well, for sure.
There is no easy. Every deal has some sort of monster
Sure.
on the back, or multiple.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I think everyone, it's like it's hard for a reason, but that's what makes it such a great opportunity. Because if you can tackle those things and reduce as much harm as possible, then that's the advantage, right? Seen a lot of successful platforms build on acquisitions, if that's their strategy of growth. Mm-hmm. And also seeing sellers walk away with a very nice deal. And so to that, what's
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to tell, how many buyers and sellers are, but I think a lot of people probably watching, a lot of people going to these events are mostly
Mm-hmm.
on the seller side.
Sure.
So what is, and it might seem easier because you're the one who's relinquishing their work and responsibility, and who's
Mm-hmm.
getting a check.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think a lot of sellers run into a little bit of reality when it comes to valuation.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that because they're told, oh, if I just go out there and I get three-year contracts, I'm going to get 10x, right? And I think that it's gotten a lot more competitive, and that demanding a high multiple is takes a lot of particular uh, parameters to get that,
Yeah.
and you almost have to go out there and find those buyers, and you have to find the right broker, and that's a messy industry as well. So it's like,
Sure.
what does a seller do after they think they've negotiated a good deal to make sure that they walk away with I'll tell this one example of what I know. Someone I know who they did an acquisition with a local company. I think his revenue was like $500,000 a year, and everything was disappointing. Like, the company was not a very good, ethically a company.
Okay.
His employees were not taken care of. There was the buyer reneged on some things that wasn't in his expectation, and he walked away. He felt like this company he built just sort of fell flat, because I think there's an
Sure.
emotional attachment as well, but
Of
also
course.
financially, ethically,
Mhm.
all these things were way short of expectations. So it's like that was a fair bit of reality. So it's like,
Yeah.
how does the seller negotiate that afterwards, once things are already kind of moving?
Right. Well, I think that is a difficult one, because finding out after the fact that the company that acquired your baby is unethical or doesn't take care of employees right, obviously that's the wrong time to find that out. But
True.
I think
Yeah.
it's difficult to know those things ahead of time. So I think the relationship part of it, and unfortunately that usually means a longer term process to get to the sale, kind of
Because
thing.
the due diligence works in the other
Yeah,
direction too, right? The seller
it
needs to do its
does.
due
Yeah,
diligence on its buyer, and
for sure. If they
not
care
everything
about that,
as
right?
it's
If they
seen.
care, yeah, they got to
Yeah,
care.
most do.
Yeah,
Most do.
yeah, most do. Yep.
Yeah, especially
But
the small
yeah,
kind of, the small shops who, like you said,
for
they were
sure.
kind of,
They
they were the
built it
guy,
themselves. Yeah,
they did it
yeah,
themselves, and they own all of
yep.
those relationships. They do care.
Right, right. So that due diligence is important, and I think there's a big focus on. I said it at the earlier on. Make sure look at every contract. Look at the employee contracts, the customer contracts, because that's the only way you're really going to understand. What is the long-term value of what you're buying, and what is the impact of that contract on any issues that might occur, right? Because with any acquisition, there's going to be people that just don't want to be part of a larger company. There's going to be people that there's a small MSP next door, and so I'm going to give them a shot now. So there's always going to be some amount of attrition from both those sides. So I think it's important that sellers come up with their list of questions, the important things from a culture point of view that they want to leave their customers and their employees in the hands of, right? What are the important things? You can't do the same type of due diligence, I don't think, on that company that's acquiring you as they're going to do on you, right? But I think there are certain things I think you need to, if they're buying the whole company, including the customers and employees, then you ask to speak to their teams, right? Ask to speak to people that work with them now, and ask for those.
Maybe
How do you feel
clients
about the
too.
way things? Yeah, and some
Talk to
clients.
some
Yeah,
of their
absolutely.
clients and
Once you're under
partners.
NDA and once you're under a letter of intent, I think it's appropriate to make those questions, because you want to
Absolutely.
know how are you leaving things. I think it would be reasonable to ask the acquiring partner, what's your client satisfaction and how do you measure that, right? So you understand, what does this really mean? How happy are they really? And I think you also have to accept that there's a certain limitation on what you're going to be able to figure out, and you're going to have to accept a leap of faith at some point, if you want to get out of that business. If you do as much due diligence as possible, you've done what you can at that point. Yeah.
What do you think about if because here's the thing: I think that some sellers might feel like if they are extremely, if they're very inquisitive and kind of having all of these,
Mm-hmm.
uh, asking all these questions, when they're at auction, then I feel like, they might, there might be kind of like, are they going to scare sellers away
Sure.
I'm sorry, buyers away
Right.
by doing that? Because, it's like there's a point where you maybe want to look attractive, and then when you're under a contract, when you're under either an LOI or even a purchase agreement,
Yeah.
that then you pull out your crazy. Then you start being like, you get really like, I want to know everything about, because
I feel like you're describing dating right now. I feel like we're talking about dating. Yeah.
there's a little bit of a sort of a marriage analogy, I think, when you're
Sure.
doing.
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And you have to kind of
wait until you've got a ring on it before you start showing how
ring
crazy
on
you
it,
are.
or at least the engagement ring, because I think, and not that you're gonna like, that they're hiding a bunch either, but you kind of like, if you found a good match, you want to, I think, get a commitment, and then don't be shy, basically, about because I feel like some people are like, oh, okay, I don't want to like shake rock the boat too much, but it's like, it's a massive decision. You should then be as you should push the limits to due diligence as possible, because that's where all the mines are, or that's where all the red flags are, right? They're not on the front; they're all hidden in the corners of, they're in the closet somewhere. And I think that
for sure.
Where I've seen it where it's gone wrong was a lack of really digging deeper, and asking,
for sure,
and even asking around, maybe not even going through the asking through the buyer or through the seller directly, but like where in their environment can you find out some sort of third party information that involves and this is where having good representation work is really crucial. Sure. On having those brokers, or if you have an advisory firm or something like that, who's walking you through that, because they're going to know where those pitfalls are, and they're going to be able to guide you on where to ask those questions and stuff like that, and see those things that maybe as a biased buyer or seller you're not going to see.
Yeah, definitely. It takes the emotion out of it, I think, is when you have somebody who has helped other companies do these things. It takes some of the emotion out of it for them to be able to say, hey, here's what I see, and here's what I've seen in this industry for this particular situation, and that's I think can be super helpful.
Sure.
Right. So I learned quite a bit just by listening to both you, Aaron, and Kathy. I asked all the questions, and I have lots more questions, by the way, but we're running out of time. And that's why this was a prequel.
Come ask all the rest of the questions in Anaheim.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. Yeah. So, Kathy, you going to be in Anaheim with us?
I am going to be in Anaheim.
Awesome.
Yeah, I am coming from Canada. So, assuming I can get across the border, yep, I'm coming.
All right. Perfect. We're looking forward to seeing you there and then continuing this conversation. And I'm sure, like at all MSPs, just gather your thoughts and gather your questions and come ready to learn some more and to expand your network. So thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Are you on LinkedIn and everything? Can people follow? Can people find you and ask questions?
Yep, Kathy Boulay on LinkedIn, and Kathy at pivotalcrew.com if you want to get a hold of me directly.
Awesome.
Great.
Perfect. So don't forget to register. There is the link right there scrolling underneath, california.centralmafiaug.com. Can't wait to see all the partners over in the West Coast, and also to see Kathy, you again.
Yeah.
And Aaron.
Looking forward to it.
Yep, to hang out. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye, everyone.